Hi everybody, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use the pen tool in Gravit Designer. And this is going to be the program that we're using for as long as we're in remote learning to replace Illustrator and to create different vector objects. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is importing an image that we're going to use as a base to trace off of and practice some of our pen tool skills. So to do that, you can go to File, Import, Place Image. And at this point, I've already downloaded an image from Google Classroom. So if I scroll down into my drive where it's saved, I can go ahead and click on my graphics pen tool practice example. You can also do the same when you're downloading from Google Classroom. And you'll see that that imports directly into your project. So a couple of things about navigating in this area is if you have an external mouse, you can go ahead and click and hold on the middle mouse button, and you can use that to pan around your work area. If you're not working with a mouse, you can go ahead and use the hand tool up here. And if that's selected, you can pan around that area as well. Again, if you're using a mouse, you can use the middle mouse button scroll wheel to move up and down in your space. You can also hold down the control key and you can use that to zoom in and out. If you're not using a mouse, you can use the fit all tools or the zoom tools to zoom in on the area that you want to work on. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is we're going to trace this shape and make it into a vector object. And I'm going to demonstrate how to use the pen tool to do this on one of these fan pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. So I'm maximizing my work area here, and I'm mainly going to be focusing on the pen tool. So if you hover over it, you'll notice that you get a really quick embedded tutorial of how it works. Um, so if I go ahead and click it and it's activated, I can start my tracing. So the pen tool works a lot like a pen. You can actually just draw over the shape here, but there's a couple different considerations we need to keep in mind as far as working with different points along the path. And that's what we're going to take some time to break down now. So what I'm going to start off by doing is really analyze the shape of this object here. And what I'm noticing is that we have a pretty distinct curve here. We have a slightly curved top and then another curve here off to the side. When you're working on tracing curves, one of the main things that you want to keep in mind is making sure that you're adding enough points so that the curve is fully realized and so that you have the maximum amount of detail. So with my pen tool selected, I'm going to start by clicking here at the base to place a point. And then as you see here, as I'm moving my pen up and down this profile here, it's starting to create a straight line. Well, we do not want a straight line in this case. We want it to be curved. So I'm going to click here where I notice the first part of the curve, and I'm going to click and hold, and you'll notice that I have these handlebars that kind of pop out of the point, and that's called a Bezier point. So I'm going to go ahead and click to establish that point, and you'll notice that as I continue the line, it also starts to curve. So instead of doing a single click, I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to curve that point around. So click and hold, curve that point, and then that brings me here to the end. So I have a straight angle point here, and I really don't want it to be curved. I know that it has a sharp edge, so I'm going to do a single click to place that straight point. If I continue using the pen tool and noticing these curves, I can click and hold to curve that, click and hold again. I have a straight point here, so I'll do a single click. And I'll go on to these curves. So click and hold, click and hold, click and hold, click and hold down here. Oh, that didn't turn out quite the way I wanted, but that's okay. We can go ahead and adjust that later. So this is where you have your first shape created. Now, if you notice here, it's not quite perfect. We have a couple of things we need to go in and fix, but this is going to be a really good starting place for us. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up here to my pointer tool so I can get off of my pen tool. And this allows me to actually make some modifications to the shape. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to adjust the fill. So I don't want the inside color to be white. And I also want to adjust the border. And if we're working in Illustrator, we call that border a stroke. So I'm going to scroll down here off to my right panel, and you'll see these options for fills and borders. So I'm going to go ahead and decrease my border amount to 0. I don't want one there. And I'm just going to be focusing on my fill. Now, to make it slightly higher contrast on the background, I'm going to go ahead and click on the fill button, and I'm going to make this orange just so it's nice and distinct for us to work with. Now, if you're trying to go in and edit some of these points and you're still in the pointer tool, you're not going to be able to do anything. So what you're going to want to do is go to the drop down here under the pointer tool and make sure you click subselect. The subselect tool is going to allow you to double click on the object and highlight the individual points and make adjustments that way. So with my subselect tool selected, I can double click on my shape, and you'll see that all of the points that I placed earlier in my initial drawings are now here. Once the subselect tool has been used to select the object, you'll also see some differences in these menus over here when I click on the individual points. So for the most part, this left side here looks pretty good. I can maybe make some fine-tune adjustments up here by moving these points around, which you can do just by clicking and moving your mouse. But then this area here is where I want to do some refinement and modify the shape a little bit. So if I click on this point, I have a couple of options. I can take this handle and I can move it in either direction to totally change the shape. Or I can go in here and I can change the different joint options to modify the curvature of the shape as well. So if I go ahead and make it disconnected, what this allows me to do is just modify one handle at a time. If I make it mirrored, that means that both of my handles are going to do the same thing at the same time. And then if I go ahead and I make it a straight joint, you're going to see that that actually becomes a curved point, or a sharp point, which is what I don't want to do. So I'll go back in here into the editing, and I'm going to go ahead and make this mirrored, and that looks okay. So now as we get down here, I can also use these handles on this Bezier curve to adjust the shape. And I also might want to consider adding an additional point down here to fully round out this shape. So you're more than welcome to add different points along a path. And you can do that by just going back to your pen tool, clicking on the point on the path that you want to modify, and you'll see that a point is placed. So I'm going to add one there, and I'll add one here. I'll explain why. So this one I wanted to add just to finish out this shape. I can maybe consider bringing this up a little bit to refine that curve. And then this one, I want to make this bottom piece sharp. So if I change that to a straight joint, I can bring this down. I can click this one as well, make that a straight joint, and finish off that shape. And if you want to go ahead and continue to fine tune some of these adjustments, you're more than welcome to do so. Oops, there we go. So as you can see here, I have created my first shape. It's really helpful to zoom out every once in a while so you can see some of the changes that you might want to make. I'm noticing that this area down here isn't quite perfect. I might want to go back in and make some adjustments here, adjust the handles to actually push that shape in more, um, or potentially add additional points along the path. But what you're going to do in this project is you're going to continue to use the pen tool to go around these different shapes and create different vectors. And you're going to choose 5 of these shapes in this document to practice on. So really go focus on precision. It's going to be tricky to get used to at first, but don't be afraid to make mistakes and start over, and do your best. So thank you for watching. Hope this was helpful, and let me know if you have any questions.